Hello everybody, this is a quick video to show you the basic functionality of the NeoTree web editor. So this is a web-based editor and hopefully you'll have found yourself on this login page from the GitHub instructions. Otherwise there's a link underneath this video which should find you to the login page. So please use the login credentials that you've been supplied with, and this leads you to the landing page of the editor. Now, as you can see, this looks very similar to the NeoTree app, and that's because everything that is built in the editor ultimately will display in the NeoTree app. So I'm doing this demonstration on a phone, and that's because I want to show you the changes made in the editor in the app, and it's easier to do so. I would recommend it if you're using the editor to open the editor on a desktop in a browser and then have the NeoTree app open on your device, Android device, so you can see the changes that you're making. So this is the landing page, and these are all the forms that have been built. And at the moment, the first thing to note is that we are in view mode. And it says that at the top of the screen. Now view mode allows us to, as it says, as you might imagine, it allows us to enter into any of the scripts that have been created, and we can just view those without having any risk of changing anything and affecting the live app. And that allows us to have a look at the different screens within that script. So as you can see, this is the admission script, which has got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of screens. And you might remember from the admission script that the first question is a yes/no question about whether the baby is crying, and that's what we can see here in position 1. We can enter that screen and we can see how that's been built. Now, as this is the first screen, it doesn't have a conditional expression, so it's not based on any other data input, so it will display for all patients. We have some property data here which we can enter, references, what step it is of a particular part of the form, so that just gives some background information. We can add a title, we can control the printout title, so that's what displays on the printout at the end of the form. We can give the health worker an action and some instructions. We can give it an input key. This is the key that would be used in subsequent screens which do have a conditional expression based on this input. So you can reference this as a conditional expression in future screens. Then we've got a label. That's the label that will be exported to the database. We then have a negative label, baby is not crying, and the positive response label. So that gives you an idea of how a screen is built within a script. What I'll do now is move into development mode and we'll actually build a basic test script. So we move to development mode in the editor by clicking switch to development mode at the top of the screen, and that now displays these plus signs at the top right and top bottom of the screen. That allows us to create a new script. So we press the plus sign and we can add a title. And we hit save, and that's created us a new script. But this script doesn't contain any screens, so we need to define our first screen. Press the plus sign, and this gives us the various different screens that we can add to a script. We can create a checklist, we can have a multiple choice, we can have a progress page, just simple yes or no. All these different kinds of screens that you've seen in the app have all been built from these options here. So let's just do a very simple yes/no for this demonstration. Here we could define a conditional expression, but as this is the first screen, there are no other data inputs preceding it, so there is no conditional expression. I'm not going to define the properties because this is just a demonstration. Now that input key is what would be used by future pages if they were using this input as a reference in a conditional expression. And I would write a formula referencing this input key and the outcome to define what that conditional expression might be. And I can also control whether this is a confidential field. If I click this on as confidential, that means that the outcome of this will not be exported to the database. So we use that for personal identifiable information. And we'll just keep this simple as no and yes. And we can add more information there, but at this stage it's not necessary. We'll click save. And that's created us the first page in position 1 for this script. Now, I'm going to hit save for this script now to save the script. Now at this stage we can see that that script is now displaying in the editor. However, if we go to the app, we can't see it there. Now if I was to press publish at the top of the screen here, then that would push this test script, this update of the editor, to the live app. But in a scenario where I want to check whether this test is functioning, then there is an option to go into the application. And here we go into the menu and we select development mode. Now what this does is this switches into development mode, which looks at what has been created in the development mode of the editor. And this gives us a little bit of protection for the live app so that people who are making changes to the editor, building scripts, or making changes to existing scripts can do so in a secure way without affecting the live app, which may be being used in a hospital. And so sure enough, now we're in development mode. It tells us we are at the bottom of the page, and we can see that the script that we've just created, test, is available. And there is the question. So we can see that the title is there at the top. We've got the action in the blue, and then we've got the question there as well. And we can select yes. And then it gives us a progress button in the bottom right. And as that's the only page in the script, that we then go straight to the summary page, and we could print this as we did with the admission. But very simply, that's probably the most simple script you can create, but gives you an idea of the functionality for creating a new script. So now that we've created this test script in the development mode within the editor, and we can see it in the development mode in the app, and we're happy with this test script, we then want to say, okay, let's push this to the live app so that the users on the ground can see it appear on their devices. So here, simply, we just put publish changes. And if we then head back to the app, we go to the live version of the app, so moving out of development mode. And that takes us back into the live version of the app, and we can see that the test script that we created in the development mode is now published to the live version of the app. So that's the complete process of creating in the development mode, testing it in the development mode of the app, and then publishing it to the live mode. So now I've shown you how to create a script from scratch. We've created that test script, very basic script. I'm now going to show you how to duplicate or copy one of the existing more complicated scripts. And what this will allow you to do is use that copied script to investigate how conditional expressions work, adding pages, adding pictures if you want, and generally investigating, all the controls and all the options within the editor and how that flows through to the app. Really encourage you to try whatever you can. You shouldn't be able to break it, and just really get an understanding of how these scripts have been pulled together and how they display within the app. So let's start off with the maternity outcome script, and first of all we need to move into development mode. So again, at the top of the app we switch into development mode, and here we can enter the 3-dot menu buttons on the maternity data script, hit duplicate, and that's put a copy of that script at the bottom of the list. Now as you can see because I'm using the editor on the phone, then the menu button for that script is hidden, so I'm just going to move that so I can actually see the menu button. And then I'm going to edit it, and I'm simply just going to change the name so we know what it is. And we'll just call it test 2. And we hit save. Now we check in the app to see if that's arrived in the app. Sometimes the app doesn't respond real time, so it's worth refreshing the app. You can do this by logging out. And there we are, it's refreshed, and we can see now in the development mode in the app that we've got test 2, and this is an exact copy of the maternal details script. Having created this copy script, I'm just going to give you a quick idea of a very simple conditional expression within that script. So we're just going to have a look inside. And in this I'm going to go into the birth history, and within the birth history we've got 4 data entries. Now on one of these data entries it is reliant on a previous data entry, so the mode of delivery, the reason for caesarean section is reliant on the mode of delivery. So if we look at the mode of delivery, we can see that in the mode of delivery this doesn't have a conditional expression because it's not reliant on any other data entry. However, if we look at the key for mode of delivery, this is what we'll be using to create a conditional expression in the next page. And so there's the key. We need to take a note of what the key is for that data entry, and then also what the options are. And you can see in the drop down values there is a number and then there's a description. The number is what is associated with the key and is used in the conditional expression. The description, or the label, which is after the comma, is what actually displays in the app and on the buttons. So that's what we know here, and so we can see for caesarean section we've got 4, 5 and 7, and then if we cancel and we take a look at that conditional expression that we want to use here, for the reason for caesarean section we do have a conditional expression, and it says $mode delivery, which is referencing that mode of delivery data entry before, and it's saying if it equals number 4 or number 5, as in if it equals a caesarean section, either elective or emergency, then it's asking us to put in a reason, and listed in the drop-down values are the reasons for why a caesarean section might be used, with their own codes as well, in case that there's another conditional expression that needs to reference this data entry, which would use $reason equals either FD, E, PE, any of those codes that are in the drop-down values. So that's how a very simple conditional expression is used, using previously entered data on the form. So as you work through the more complicated scripts, then you may see much more complicated conditional expressions, but they all follow this basic form, which has a key, has an argument, and whether that argument is satisfied or not, it either activates an option or an entry or triggers a management page. Another piece of functionality of the editor is being able to add configurations to the NeoTree app. And now you may remember in the app navigation video that I mentioned the configuration area of the app, where we can turn on certain settings or certain units based on resources available or perhaps skills available within the hospital setting. So this is controlled from the editor as well. And if we go to the menu button in the top left, we can enter configuration, and here you can see the existing configuration, things such as whether pulse oximeters are available, blood sugar monitors are available, etc. If we want to add one of these, we just hit the plus button, and we'll just call this test, and we'll say turn test on, save. And there we see it in the editor. And if we move to the app, it's not there yet, so let's just quickly refresh. Again, you can refresh the app by either logging in or logging out. And there we have turn test on at the bottom of the configuration. So that is how to set configuration in the editor. So we've now created another test script, the copy of the maternity outcome, or maybe you've chosen a different script to copy. We've also added a configuration, but this is just a reminder that you're still in development mode, so you've only made these changes in development mode in the app. If you want to publish these to the live version of the app, then you just go to the top right and hit publish. That pushes it to the live version of the app. We can check that by going back into the app, going to the menu and switching to live. And there we have the second test added to the live script. And if we check the configuration, we also have turn test on. So that's everything updated into the live app. Now that we've demonstrated how to create a new script, duplicate an existing script, and create configurations in the NeoTree web editor, as well as explaining how conditional expressions work, it's time for a bit of housekeeping. Once you are done creating and testing your own experimental scripts, and you are ready to delete them to keep the editor and the app clean of test scripts, make sure that you're in development mode, as shown at the top of the screen. Locate your test scripts in the script list in the editor, and then go to the 3-dot menu button on each script and just hit delete. Once you've done that, remember to publish the changes to the live version of the demo app, pushing the button in the top right corner. And we can check that in the app by going to the menu button in the app and switching to the live environment. And there we can see in the live environment of the app, the test scripts have now been deleted. One other thing to note is the versioning between the editor and the app. So here you can see in the top left corner, you can see version 11, and that should correspond with version 11 in the editor. You then know that your editor is in sync with your app. So that's the basic functionality of the NeoTree web editor. I hope you now have the basic functionality to test the web editor and create and understand how digital forms can be created and edited for the hospital setting.